OOUX stands for Object-Oriented User Experience. And really it's a philosophy, it's a toolkit that exploits a reality about how our brains are wired. And that is, we as humans, we think in terms of objects. So to continue talking about it, we should probably define what that nebulous word means. And in digital abstractions of our physical world, i.e. applications, objects are the things people care about in these apps, right? So if you think about shopping on Amazon's web app, an obvious object is the product, right? Mm-hmm. The fidget spinner, whatever we're looking at buying. And as we cruise down the product page on the fidget spinner, we find reviews, which are a very important nested object that may help us decide to buy or not to buy that product. And really it's one of the low-hanging fruit wins of OOUX is that contextual navigation of objects and things that they have relationships to in the mental model of the users.
What are some things you maybe notice on your team as symptoms? If there isn't enough of like that OOUX mindset or patterns in play, what are some of those symptoms or problems that a team out there may have?
There's a couple big ones. So calling one thing different names, you see a lot, or calling two different things by the same name or a similar name. And you can see how that disparity or that sort of chaos around one thing, it's going to trickle its way into the code itself. Right? So what does the engineer call the thing that the product managers and designers talk about every day? It could be different. Mm-hmm. And that can trickle its way into classes and functions in the actual code. So it brings to mind Eric Evans' Domain-Driven Design, 2004 book he wrote about ubiquitous language. He takes it a step further and says that those names that you come up with that are in concrete, they need to be circulated in the team and in their minds, but also into the code itself. Mm-hmm. So that when the engineer goes to update the object, the PM could actually look at that code and kind of understand what they're doing, or at least have an anchor of understanding to start with.
Where do you think the value of OOUX really comes into play?
It comes into play in collaborative, balanced teams. A very important point is that you don't start designing, you don't start sketching and prototyping and wireframing until well into the game. So that means your PMs, your subject matter experts, and your engineers definitely need to be involved in those early rounds of discovery, requirements, and prioritization so that you all have a shared language, you're calling things the same, you understand the attributes of all of your objects in the same way, and you can talk about them the same way. And it's really that collaborative game that gets me passionate about sharing it with others. Design by committee sucks, right? It's kind of a designer's nightmare to live design with several stakeholders on a call. Right? That's not how we do our best work. But a caveat to that is when we're designing systems, when we're talking about the objects in a system, the attributes that create them, and the calls to action that we want to offer to our users, it's very important to get all stakeholders involved in those conversations and helping to prioritize which actions we're going to provide first and what are the first set of objects we're going to move forward with. And which ones can we bring in later as we have a solid foundation of the model. And that's another big benefit of the framework is that non-technical folks, myself and the PMs and the subject matter experts, we can get together and create an object map that's very well defined, it's validated with users. They helped us prioritize the attributes and how important they are and where they should show up on a page when we go to represent it. But beyond that, we can pass that object map off to engineering and directly impact information architecture. And when we start talking about the cardinality of objects to others in the system, engineers are going to be like, wow, you guys did a good part of my job for me, because they're creating technical designs that map these entities to one another in various ways. And OOUX makes it an approachable way for non-technical folks to get their hands dirty and to pass off something really valuable, not just a high fidelity prototype that may or may not be connected to the model, but real core stuff that the engineers are going to have to figure out themselves anyways. So you might as well have it be user feedback based and concrete and bulletproof. The cost of change to go back and refactor all of that is miserable. So it's one of those things where if you slow down, you can speed up. And I know here at Agile and Beyond, like process isn't everyone's favorite guy to hang out with at the party, but OOUX gives you bulletproof traditional UX deliverables, right? So that foundation's right. You avoid that Laffer curve of cost of change, and you stay close to that x-axis when you need to iterate.
And so let's say we're working on a team that's already in play. We've already got a product out there. We've got a team in play. We've got our own existing way of working and our principles, and this is something we're looking to add and get the benefits of. What's some advice on what are the early stage steps to take to get started? Because I imagine it can be overwhelming.
It is. Luckily, we have Sophia Prater as sort of the leader in the space. She's got a self-paced masterclass and a certification course as well. I highly recommend the masterclass. I've taken it. And there's a fundamentals course and some other things, but just dive in. Go to OOUX.com, rewiredux.com as well. We'll take you there. She's got a great podcast.
Subscribe to the podcast to get future episodes as soon as they're published. If you find this helpful, give the podcast a 5-star rating on your podcast app or hit that like button on YouTube.